Hi, my name is Bijal Shah and I am a bibliotherapist and founder of Book Therapy, a bibliotherapy and literary curation practice. I'm also the author of the book Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading. I curate book prescriptions and provide online training in bibliotherapy. More detail of this can be found on my website, www.booktherapy.io. In this podcast, I share my knowledge and research on bibliotherapy, including the latest developments, science, and book recommendations. Join me every week where we take a deep dive into bibliotherapy. We release 2 episodes a week. Voice notes from me, your resident bibliotherapist, and Ask the Bibliotherapist, book recommendations for what's on your mind. I hope you enjoy the show, and if you'd like a bibliotherapist in your pocket, you might find my book, Bibliotherapy, The Healing Power of Reading, a helpful companion. It's available at any bookstore that you shop at. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and get new episodes as they're released. And as always, I love hearing from listeners. So if you'd like to get in touch, share any book recommendations or thoughts on bibliotherapy, you can do so at bijal@booktherapy.io. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Bibliotherapy with Bijal Shah. Today I am really excited to share my conversation with Talia Bruck, who has written these incredible stories representing neurodivergent kids and helping them navigate some of the issues that they might be dealing with in her story series called Savanna Therapeutic Stories. Talia is a late diagnosed neurodivergent drama therapist and a creative art supervisor and systemic practitioner. She has over 25 years experience working with children, young people and families, and she's really passionate about supporting them to dream big and live the life they deserve. She's also the founder of Savanna Therapeutic Stories, which led me to our conversation today. These stories and characters are inspired by her past, brought up in Africa, as well as her many years of working with neurodivergent children and their families. There are currently 10 Savanna Therapeutic Stories covering a variety of topics to develop conversations between adults and children. And more information of these can be found on her website, Savanna Therapeutic Stories, at www.savanna-therapeutic.org.uk, and her books are available on Amazon. I will put links to her social media, as she's on most of the channels, in the show notes and transcripts as well. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Talia. I hope you enjoy it and find it really helpful. And as always, I love hearing your thoughts and reflections, so please do write to me. I always reply back. Enjoy. So lovely to have you here today, and I'm so excited to tell the world about Savanna's Therapeutic Stories. It's such a wonderful initiative, and I know you've now published 10 books with 2 more to come, so I'm really excited to share your story, the books, which are hugely helpful for children, and also your writing process and going a little bit deeper into why you set up Savanna Therapeutic Stories and the impact these have had over the last few years. It might be helpful to tell me a little bit about yourself and how you fell into writing Savanna Therapeutic Stories.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here. So I'm a drama therapist by trade. I work with children and young people, and I've been doing that for about 25 years now. It was never my plan to write books. What I started doing is, through my drama therapy work, is writing therapeutic stories for young people on specific things that they were moving through. So as a drama therapist, we work a lot in the metaphor. And then at the start of COVID, a lot of my schools that I was working in were asking me for resources and for things that they could use with young people, because obviously as a world found ourselves in a completely unprecedented time. And there was no real way to explain to children and young people about what was happening. And I don't think we knew. So it was quite a scary time for everyone initially. And I decided to write a story. I wrote a set of stories, 3 stories, which looked at and tracked how COVID changed and the lockdowns and the vaccine and all of those things. A friend of mine's daughter was doing her GCSEs, and I asked if she'd illustrate. She was doing art, and she's a really wonderful artist. And she was delighted because although they were doing online schooling, it wasn't the same, and it gave her something extra to do as well. So she created these really lovely images. And then what we did was we released them as PDFs. I didn't really know how else to do it. That's how they started. And then I was contacted by another drama therapist, Patricia Arjahonman, and she asked if she could share them. And I said, yes, please. And they went out through the drama therapy community, and anyone who wanted them, they were a free resource. And then she contacted me further down the line in COVID and said that her trust wanted to use them, but they wanted them updated to reference how things had changed. So I said to her, let's do it together. And we updated them together. And those books now sit on our website. So they're free. You can just go and download them or have a look at them. That was the starting process of writing.
It's so needed, and therapeutic stories are vital in this day and age, especially with mental health in children declining and all the sort of neurodiversity diagnoses that are coming up, and just in general, schools and children and teachers all looking for ways to represent each child's story. So I do feel that something like a therapeutic story, it's so niche, but it's so needed. And how would you define a therapeutic story for somebody who's new to this?
I suppose for me, it's all about sparking a conversation. So I think any story, any children's book, there's so many amazing books out there. I remember when my kids were little, we would do story time every night. And I think you can find a therapeutic meaning or value in any story, really, because it's what you draw from it.
Yes.
And I think it's about the conversation that happens, because just reading a story is wonderful. I remember snuggling with my kids and reading loads of stories, but it was the discussions about the books and checking out what they understand from the book and the meaning they've taken from the book. It's about looking at our values. It's about looking at what's important to us. It's about connection and creating relationship. It's about learning about different cultures and different ways the world works in different parts of the world. Any book can have therapeutic value. What makes our books slightly different, although I have come across over the years other books which are also doing this, is that we have questions at the end of the book to really think about the topic that we've been looking at in the book. For instance, the latest book, Lottie's Busy Brain, about ADHD, there's a set of questions that helps you dive into the book a little bit further, trying to see what Lottie might have been experiencing, what her friends, her family, etc. And we also give guidance to anyone who's reading the book with the young person about how to support them in opening up that conversation.
Yes, 100%. I think, especially, for example, Lottie's Busy Brain, children who have ADHD really struggle with articulating what they experience and what's actually going on in their brains. So I feel that questions at the back and then a story that represents their experiences is so crucial, something that's a little bit more tailored to exactly what these children are feeling. It's so important, that representation, that connection. To that story that is their story.
And I think, obviously, every book that we've written on all the different topics, it's not exhaustive. The book on ADHD, it doesn't have absolutely every single thing, but there will be something in it that resonates with someone. So I look at the book, and through doing the process and other things, I myself have been diagnosed with ADHD. And this is the book I wanted, because it would have made so much more sense to me. And I could have gone, gosh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. I just think in a slightly different way. I think you're going to take in all of the books, you will find something that resonates with you. And that's the hope. And then that builds the conversation.
Yes, exactly. You've got a whole collection now, which, as you said, puts all the pieces together of maybe some slightly different experiences. You mentioned something on sensory processing and on autism, which are all things that sometimes exist together. So it's nice you've put together this whole collection of therapeutic stories. And are you able to mention the other ones and the mental health themes they address?
The one that kicked us off was silo sadness, and that actually was written after a colleague said at the end of COVID, or as we were coming out of it, we need something on loss because there's been so many losses. Using some of the images that Erin had already created for the COVID stories, I wrote a story called Silo Sadness, and we used those images, and that was like a test story. So that one's on loss.
I remember reading that. I really enjoyed it. The illustrations were brilliant.
Yeah, so that was like our first test into kind of writing and publishing. And then we've got Tallulah's Rules, which is on autism, which I co-wrote with some colleagues at work who had a lot more experience in autism than I did at that point. And that was really helpful writing because they were part of our neurodevelopmental team at work. So that was really helpful. And then there's Tiana's Tale, which is about racism. And that was written with Patricia, who I'd done the COVID stories with. And we had some really interesting conversations. We wrote Tiana's Tale. And then we've got Is It Me?, which is about parental mental illness. And I work for a charity called Our Time, which run kids' time workshops. So it's about working with families where a parent has a mental health difficulty, and it's about supporting them and helping them to talk to their children about mental health, destigmatizing mental health, which is something I'm quite passionate about. We've got Hugo's Hops, which I wrote with another drama therapist, Jessie, who works with young people who've got disabilities. And the book is on disability. Hugo is born with one leg. And then we've got Leona and Her Two Dads, which is about different families.
Yeah.
And then we've got Here We Go Again, a story about bullying, which I co-wrote with another colleague, a counselling psychologist called Gail Sinitsky. And that one's obviously about bullying. And then we've got Georgie the Elf's Big Game, which is about feeling forgotten. And then we have the final one, which is the current new one, which is Lottie's Busy Brain about ADHD. Georgie the Elf's Big Game is slightly different, as you can tell by the title, The Elf. It's about an elf. The other 9 books are all using the metaphor of savanna animals. We tried just a slight tweak to see how it would work. Georgie the Elf's Big Game, which is about this young elf who feels forgotten. And you mentioned the sensory processing. That one, we go into writing at the end of the month with another drama therapist, Amy.
I haven't come across many children's books that really target these everyday experiences of neurodiverse children. So it's fantastic that you're doing one on sensory processing and the other themes you mentioned. I think even as adults, we could do with some of these books ourselves for anyone struggling with neurodiversity.
I think we're learning more, aren't we?
Yeah.
Where we were 10 years ago and where we are today, it's really different. We're learning a lot more about what neurodiversity actually means. I certainly had very stereotyped views on, as I grew up, on autism, ADHD. We didn't really understand it. And I think now, because of all the research, we're understanding a lot more. Yes. And we're realizing that it's not as tiny as we saw it. I think we saw it in a very binary, linear kind of way.
Yeah.
What we're realizing now is actually it encompasses so much more, and everyone experiences it completely differently.
So many different traits that you could experience, even if you're not formally diagnosed. So there's such a spectrum that it starts catching a wider net of people than we previously thought.
Yeah, if you've got ADHD, doesn't mean you have absolutely every single thing within ADHD. You experience things at different levels. The same with autism. Someone explained it to me as almost being on a soundboard. Some things are more finely tuned, some things are very loud, some things are a bit softer. And that's how it works, is that everyone is different. What I find really tricky as an ADHD person, someone else might not struggle so much with that bit of it.
Yes. It's so unique to your own experience, personal experience. But it's nice to have these stories to help communicate your experience and also speak to your own experience as self-validation as well in terms of what's going on.
Absolutely. And all the books go out for review. We try and get reviews done by a variety of people before we publish them to make sure that they're authentic. We look at professionals, we look at young people, and we try and get a real cross-section. It was Tallulah's Rules, where someone wrote back to me and said their child read the book with them and then was like, but that's me. And so it really created an opportunity for that parent to be able to sit with their young person and explore that. It felt really powerful.
It's that shock of recognition that I always say when you're reading something and then you're like, oh my goodness, that is my experience, and that resonance. It really opens up the conversations and our understanding of ourselves, of others, of our children who might have it. What would you say the impact these stories have had on the children who've read them? What's been their feedback and their sense of progress or not progress, sense of feeling a little more understood, affirmed, helped?
I think because it's through the metaphor of using animals, it's easier to project onto. It can be more distanced, which is what we use a lot in drama therapy, that aesthetic distance. So you can work with that and you can have that validation without necessarily even saying that's you. I think the joy of these stories with young people has been, like you say, recognizing themselves in the characters, giving them ideas that they're not alone. With the Is It Me book on parental mental illness, I originally wrote it as a therapeutic story for a kids' time workshop, where we were exploring parents' mental health and how it impacts on the young person. And in this particular story, Jerry feels that his father doesn't love him, but actually his dad's got depression. And that's why he doesn't play with him a lot or goes through these periods of being really low. So Jerry thought that he didn't love him, but actually that wasn't the case at all. And it really helped the young people in those workshops to understand that it's not about them, that this is about their parent. They can't catch their mental illness. It's not their fault. And I think that's been really important for young people to hear. We were asked by the Icelandic Kids Time Workshop if they could translate the book.
Oh, that's wonderful. All of these books should be translated.
Yeah, that would be amazing. But at the moment, the only one that's been translated into Icelandic or any language is It Me? And we gave them the rights, and Jake, our lovely artist, gave the rights to them to use the book so that they could just literally translate it. They didn't have to rewrite anything. What they were giving us feedback on was that they'd gone onto a psychiatric ward, and there was an adult who was pretty unwell and was trying to explain to their child about what was wrong with them and just didn't have the words. So they gave this parent a copy of the book, and the parent read it to the child, and the child was able to understand what was happening with the parent and not feel that it was their fault. So powerful.
So powerful. It's that theory of mind, that ability to then see other people's perspectives just because it's now being told through the story.
Yeah.
So that ability to mentalize and all of that's, it's so wonderful to hear that. And it's nice that these books are addressing that gap that can sometimes be there. It's great to hear the impact that it's having. And I assume from the translation perspective, it would be so great to have these in other languages. I've recently had my books translated into different languages, and you can just see the power in terms of spreading awareness of these issues, of the books. I really feel for the overall mission of Savanna Therapeutic Stories, that translation piece would be absolutely essential. So I don't know if you can do that with AI now, but it would be wonderful to have them.
Yeah, it would be amazing to be able to have the books in different languages so that they're more accessible.
I mean, they're available on Amazon everywhere in English.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say this. They are on Amazon, and we do have, when you can look at the analytics of where your books get sold, there are books being sold in different countries. So obviously, if families are able to access the language, the books are available. But yeah, it would be amazing to be able to translate them. Maybe something for the future.
They're just in print at the moment, right? Print and ebook.
So not all of them are ebook, because when I started doing them, I didn't really think about ebook, and it's a different format. So at the moment, there are 3 of them, ebook, and then there's one as a read aloud book. Tiana's Tale through the help of a brilliant friend, John Fiber. We recorded Tiana's Tale as an audiobook, which was really incredible.
I think that's so helpful for people who might have dyslexia or struggle with reading, and you can still access these books. So I love the fact that you've got that audiobook for that one.
Yeah.
And definitely for future ones as well, who knows?
If I think back to when we used to do car journeys, when we would go on holiday with the kids, we would just have the same audiobooks on repeat. We'd be listening to loads of stories as we drove. So that was my thinking. I'd like to do the rest of them in audiobooks, but it's a slow process.
It is a slow process. All of these things take time, especially when it's something like storytelling. In fact, that was going to be my next question. How do you actually create these stories? Because you've got some amazing ideas from the ones that I have read. I thought that the stories were just perfect in the way that they were compiled and the character's journey and the kind of awareness and lessons that they learned at the end. How do you go about putting it all together and planning and storyboarding? And because I think they're really brilliant stories.
Oh, thank you. Each story is really different. Some of them were like therapeutic stories. And when I forgot to say about Silo's Raw, which is a book on worry. And Silo's Raw was written again as a therapeutic story. Is It Me was also a therapeutic story. So the ones I tend to write by myself, they're not quick. I get an idea and then I go for it. And then over months, there's a lot of refining, retweaking, changing things around. The ones that are co-authored, they obviously take a little bit more planning time because you're working with someone. At the moment, we've actually finished the writing bit, but there are two that are in final illustration and being pulled together. We've got one with a charity called Roundabout on dementia. Which will hopefully be coming out not in the not too distant future. Roundabout is an amazing drama therapy charity. Last year had their 40th year, which is amazing as a charity. And they do a lot of work in schools and in care homes doing drama therapy. And they approached me to write a book for their 40th year, part of their celebrations. And that book, there's three of us writing, Lynn Cedar and Deb Haythorne, who started the charity. And we're basically doing it on Zoom. We write it and then we ping pong it back. And there's planning meetings beforehand. And then there's another one I'm working on with another charity called Rowan Tree, who are, again, an amazing drama therapy charity who work a lot with children in the care system. And this book is around children in care. And again, there was a lot of pre-planning, sitting together, again on Zoom, really thinking about what it is, what is our message in the book. And then again, a lot of writing meetings on Zoom and then ping-ponging. Again, there's three of us writing it, Bryony and Justine and myself. And Bryony and Justine, they're the founders and they run Rowan Tree. It really depends also because everyone's different. Every writing journey's been different, but there's a lot of conversation. There's a lot of discussion. Patricia and I, when we did Tiana's Tale, the story about racism, we joked afterwards that we should have recorded our discussions because our discussions were so rich. As a Black African woman, which is Patricia, and a white South African Jewish woman who grew up during apartheid in South Africa, we had some really amazing conversations that we were gutted afterwards that we hadn't recorded these because we really needed to go to some really deep places with each other before we actually could start the writing bit.
Yeah, that would have been amazing as a podcast series or just for people to go behind the scenes and look at your writing process.
Yeah, and it's interesting because all the books I have a connection to in some ways. They're all really personal to me. Even when Deb and Lynn approached me and we started talking about what would the topic be for the book. And they were like, dementia would be a really great topic because it combines both their work, because they work in the care homes with a lot of adults who have dementia, but they work a lot with children. And so obviously this would be a children's book. And recently, my dad has been diagnosed with dementia. So there always seems to be like a personal interweave.
Almost a bit of autofiction, right?
Yeah.
Those are the best books. I think all books to some extent are autofiction because they're written from our own perspective, our own lens, our own experience. And they say we are actually bounded by the limits of our imagination because it's what we know and what we can possibly just imagine, and that's where the boundaries of these books are. But it's so wonderful that you are able to bring your entire experience and your whole self to this process, because it does come across when people read it, that authenticity aspect.
Yeah. And I think what's also important with the books is that because, like you say, you're bound by your experience and your knowledge, there's a recognition that I'm not the font of all knowledge when it comes to everything. So, for instance, the book with Rowan Tree, they are the experts in working with care experienced children. I've worked with care experienced children, but not to the extent that they do. And also getting young people and parents and professionals to review the books before we go into final stages is really important. And it's been really interesting. In Tiana's Tale, there was a young boy, a friend of mine's son actually, who read the book. He was really upset that Tiana and her family had left the part of the savannah where the racism was to go and start a new life. And he was like, why should they leave? They've done nothing wrong. And he got really incensed by it. And we were like, gosh, yeah, that's pretty true. Why should they have to leave? And so what we did was we added a question in the question section to address this. What would you do? Do you think she should have left?
And it's such a philosophical question, because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's just what aligns with your own values.
Yeah, it's that using of the reviewers and the outsiders who have not been part of the writing process, because I think you can get quite stuck in it and you fall in love with the words. You fall in love with the way you construct the book. Sometimes you need someone to come in and go, oh, that didn't quite make sense. Did you mean it this way or that way? And that really is so helpful, because that informs whether we go, actually, no, I did mean it. So I'm sticking with that.
I agree. I think that's really helpful that you have those questions at the back, and it makes the book a bit more meaningful, and also it gives people a way to construct their own narrative as well from the book and off the back of it, leverage off it. So do you have that for all the books?
So all the books have a section at the front where we talk about how to support those conversations. What might make us different from other therapeutic children's books is all of them, apart from the first one, have a foreword by someone who is either established in that particular field or someone by experience. Or for Lottie's Busy Brain, a colleague where I was working, a dear friend, Talia, she's a psychiatrist. She did the foreword for this one, and she's amazing. She's just an incredible psychiatrist. And she did the foreword, and obviously she read Lottie's Busy Brain before she did the foreword. So it felt like we have a really authentic stamp, because one of the things she does is diagnose ADHD. In Georgie, the Elf's Big Game, we had Jodie Karras, the founder of Self Space, who is a brilliant therapist who I've been lucky to work with over the years. And she wrote the foreword about that feeling of being forgotten. Is it me? We had Dimpna Kanani, who's the CEO of Our Time, write the foreword. So we've been so lucky with the people we've had.
Yes, it's a very collaborative approach. Yeah. And to get these really experienced mental health professionals bringing these other perspectives makes the book very complete. I'm actually really excited to get some of your newer books, because I feel like I need to just get a whole bundle.
Excellent to hear that.
I don't know if you sell them as a series or if you just sell them individually.
At the moment they're sold individually. Down the line, I am thinking about whether we do almost like an encyclopedia where you can get all of the books in one big book, like an annual type thing.
Oh yes, a bit of an anthology or something.
That would be great. We'll do an anthology or something. And I'd love to get all the books into primary schools. That would be my main goal, is to have the books in as a set in primary schools. The schools I work in, when a new book comes out, I always give them free copies. We've spoken before at Senko conferences, and we've had sales off the back of that. If someone contacts me indirectly or directly via DM, we've sold bundles of books. So it's selling them through me rather than Amazon.
Yeah, I think that personal touch is nice as well. And just so that people can also get to know you as an author and your work. And also be kept up to date with new books that might be coming out as well. And do you have a newsletter or anything?
We don't have a newsletter. We do have the website, which houses all the COVID stories, which are there for free. We've also got a workshop for teachers on bullying from the book Here We Go Again, a story about bullying.
And the website, Savanna Therapeutic Stories?
Yeah, www.savanna, which is no H at the end, dash therapeutic.org.uk. All the books are on there. So there's links to where you can purchase the books from. And there's also partner organizations like yourself. We've got Rowan Tree and Roundabout on there as well.
I was very curious about your work and as a drama therapist, and I was just curious as to how that works.
So I work part-times in CAMS, that's the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, and that's NHS, and then I work in schools as well. So I work in some primary and secondary school. I do a lot of individual work, but I also do some group work. We work a lot through play and metaphor. I really work with what is helpful to the child or the young person. So no person is ever going to get the same sessions because it's all tailored towards what the young person wants and needs. Yes. So some young people, we might do a lot of sand work. They love the sand tray. Some is more art-based. Some teenagers particularly like to sit and talk. Sometimes it's a lot through games, puppets, object work, cards, creating stories. Every drama therapist will work slightly differently. We all have the tools that we like. I like story and creating stories with young people. It's quite rich because no day at work is ever the same.
A lot of variety.
And then obviously there's always the mundane parts of the job, like having to go to meetings, doing the paperwork side of things. But the best work is the actual face-to-face work with the young people. Every young person who I've worked with over 25 years has enriched and informed me in ways that are not measurable. I've learned so much from the young people I've worked with. And in terms of the stories, yes, so some of them I write therapeutic stories for, if they're working on a particular theme. So Sila's Raw was written as a therapeutic story for someone where they really struggled to manage disappointment. They really struggled with big feelings and would have these rages where they would lash out. And it wasn't because the young person was naughty or anything like that. It was that they were becoming completely overwhelmed and just didn't know what was happening. And so it came out in a roar. Yes, and obviously we know that it's very important to have a roar as a little lion cub, which was what Sally was in the story. But it's also important to be able to think about sometimes our roar might pop out, but sometimes we might have to explore, well, what's going on? What's going on underneath the roar? So some of the stories have come about those ways, and Sila's Roar was one of those where we developed then further, or I developed it then further into a therapeutic story, not just a story to use in the session.
How do you feel that books help neurodiverse children versus other tools?
I think it's about helping young people to identify parts of themselves where they can self-identify. And I think it's another tool. I think it's what works for one young person and what works for another is going to be different. And some kids really like listening to stories and exploring stories and writing their own stories. And other young people might prefer the talking, or other young people might prefer sports or dance. Or I think it's another tool for a school or a parent or a carer to have as a way of facilitating the conversation. And I think it's also about teaching. It's about helping people and young people who maybe don't have a neurodiversity, or maybe don't have a parent with a mental health difficulty, or a sibling with a physical disability, or who have never been bullied. It's helping them to also understand what it might be like from someone else's perspective. I think we live in a world where we don't always think about the other person. We're thinking about ourselves a lot. And actually, these books are a way to come out of that a bit and to see that, gosh, some people think differently, and what's that like for them? And some people have experienced racism because of their skin color or their religion, or because they come from a different part of the world. So it's really trying to create perspective and have those conversations and encourage it. We can talk about these things. It's not taboo. Talking about mental health years ago was taboo. Talking about autism or ADHD, it was like, oh my goodness, there's something wrong with you.
Yes,
no, there isn't. It's just, let's talk about it.
Absolutely. I think because it felt so unfamiliar to so many people, it was just almost, I don't know how to deal with this thing that's so foreign. But actually, the more we talk about it, the more we realise that we all have some degree of it. And it's nice to have these conversation starters, but also stories, because I do feel that the stories are our first language. They are the way we understood the world through meaning and symbolism. And it's the language of the unconscious mind. We're always, as a human race, going to be drawn to stories. We do need them.
And if you think about, in days gone by where they'd sit around campfires and they would tell stories, and that is how your traditions were passed down from the elders. It was sitting around having those stories. They didn't have a Kindle, they didn't have a TV or an iPad. We sat together and we communicated and we talked to each other and we told stories. And how valuable is that? We don't want to lose that.
Exactly, and this is just a different format of that in the modern
absolutely.
World. I'm so happy that we were able to have this conversation today and you were able to come and talk to us about Savanna Therapeutic Stories. I know we've been trying to get this into the diary for a while, so it's great that we've finally managed to have this conversation, and I'm really excited to share it with my audience and readers, and just in the hope that it's really going to be helpful for anyone who really needs them right now. And I'd just like to end with one more question in terms of what are your plans for the new year and Savanna Therapeutic Stories, and what are you most excited about? What should we be looking for in the new year?
Yeah, so very excited because we do have, as I said, 2 books that are literally in the final stages before they go to print. We've got She's Still Grandma on Dementia coming out with Roundabout. And then we've got Ash's Den coming out with Rowan Tree about children in the care system. We go into writing the sensory processing book at the end of January. I've had some conversations with other people about other books that people want to collaborate on. So hopefully the idea is that we're going to just keep writing stories and keep collaborating with lots of people on them, and hopefully keep doing the Kindle editions as well, and hopefully doing some audiobooks.
That's a lot in the pipeline. It's definitely something to keep our eyes on.
We'll be on social media and the website.
I can put all the links to your social media in the transcripts as well. Are you on Instagram or more LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Savanna T Stories, LinkedIn. We do have a Facebook page. We do have a TikTok. People can very easily find us by just typing in Savanna Therapeutic Stories. And there is a YouTube channel as well where Patricia and Kadeen Tyrell recorded one of the COVID stories, which was really amazing. So that's on there as well. So we're out there. You just got to type our name in and have a look and see what we're up to.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'll definitely be taking a sneak peek later today.
Excellent.
But it's wonderful. Thank you for this amazing initiative. And I'm really excited for these other books to come out, and we'll definitely be getting some copies for friends and family as well. Thank you so much, Talia, for coming on and for taking the time today. I know it's been a really busy holiday period, so I really appreciate it.
No, that's brilliant. I really appreciate, Bijal, that you had us on, and it's lovely to connect again.
Thanks so much, Talia, and all the links to everything, all the books and the website and social media will be in the transcripts as well.
Perfect.
So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Until next time, take care. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you'd like to sign up to our online courses or try a personalised book prescription or bibliotherapy session, you can do so following the links in the show notes. And as always, I love hearing from listeners, so don't hesitate to drop me an email at bijal@booktherapy.io.